Welcome to Musing on the Bard. I'm your host, Sally McLean. On today's episode, we welcome the excellent Australian actor and one of the core team members of Incognita Enterprises, Sass Pinci. Based predominantly in Melbourne, Sass is an award-winning actor, writer, director and producer. She has worked all around Australia and had her work viewed both locally and internationally in theatre, film, recording and coaching. A highly trained actor and singer, Sass has trained in institutions such as Victorian College of the Arts, the University of Melbourne and Howard Fine Acting Studio, with which she has an ongoing relationship in both Melbourne and LA. Predominantly a theatre performer from a very young age, her focus has more recently turned to screen, with her most notable recent credits including Queen Evil in the award-winning Amazon Prime horror feature film Queen Evil, and Grace in the upcoming Australian indie feature When the House is Empty. As a producer and director for both stage and screen, Sass's production credits include musical director for WIT Incorporated's production Dear Mama, There's Something I Have to Tell You, director, writer and producer of popular theatre production Frypan, director of the successful Fringe show My Failed Career, and director of Category 6 The Proposal, as well as producer and sound designer for Incognita Enterprises series Dark Arcadia. Shakespeare Republic audiences will remember Sass from her beautiful work as Mark Antony in Shakespeare Republic All the Web's the Stage, The Lockdown Chronicles, for which she was awarded alongside the rest of our amazing cast for that season with Best Ensemble International Narrative at the 2021 New Zealand Webfest, Best Ensemble Cast Drama at the 2021 British Web Awards, Best Ensemble Performance at the 2022 London Webfest in the UK, and nominated for Best Ensemble Performance Drama at the 2022 International Academy of Web Television Awards in the USA. Most recently, Sass played the role of Elizabeth Grey in our award-winning Shakespeare limited series Dark Arcadia, part of the Shakespeare Republic universe, as well as composing and performing the main song on screen for the series, the Willow Song, a performance that won her the Best Music Award at the 2024 Apulia Webfest in Italy. So pull up a chair, settle in, and join us in this insightful and wide-ranging conversation about Shakespeare, acting, and more with today's guest, Sass Pinci.
As far as Shakespeare on my life, I've always loved words. It's, like that Hemingway quote, all my life I looked at words as I was seeing them for the first time. I've always loved words, whether it be songwriting or scripts. There is something about Shakespeare specifically for me that once you start to demystify, you realize that the human condition, the core of it is just the most important thing. So I think it brought home to me, one, all of the bad habits that I had as an actor, because I realized, I can't get away with anything with Shakespeare, which I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed the fact of I have to be so 100% in this for it not to be some strange theatrical, I'm acting, to really find that authentic human. It's obvious because these are not words that I would use every day. So there's no defaults or cop-outs that I could have doing Shakespeare, which was a beautiful challenge. So that was the first thing. Also, I got to do Shakespeare in Italian, which I never thought I would do, and did that for Shakespeare Republic specifically, and realizing that, that beautiful language, and it was translated very well, and realizing I didn't understand half of it. I had to go through that journey again. So Shakespeare's given me a lot of empathy, because doing that again, I think you get to a certain stage with language, with words, with training, where you go, oh no, this is quite easy. Why are people scared of this? And then I went and did the Italian version and went, because it is terrifying initially when you don't know what you're dealing with. Having to call my dad quite often and go, hi, I have a word for you. And him, a native Italian speaker, being like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And we could figure out the root of the word, figure out where it was, but have to very specifically comb over language again. So I felt like I was sort of a baby actor in a way, which was a great exercise in empathy. But what Shakespeare gave me was I knew that I had the tools and the confidence to then decode. So language has never scared me again. In fact, I get really excited when I don't understand something and kind of do a few like happy dances, because I'm in for the cool journey where I get to decode this and find something completely new from what is in my current vernacular. And that's really exciting to me.
Sass Pinci, welcome to Musing on the Bard.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. That's brilliant. Yeah, I mean, I think the challenge of the language, the words, is something that it is a Mount Everest, as we know. Actors often refer to Shakespeare as the Mount Everest of acting. And yeah, getting to grips with that really does prepare you, I think, to be able to jump into just about any text after that and feel confident that you can work it out, you can find a way through. That's what I discovered as well. I mean, I'm very much relate to what you said there. It certainly because it is technically a different language. Add the layer in of then another language again. And yeah, it's
yeah. And look, I did that to myself, as we usually do, but it was the same challenge. It was quite unifying, actually, the two parts of myself going, here we are, we're here again.
Yeah, absolutely. It is something that I think definitely helps. So any actors listening to this who haven't tackled the Shakespeare thing, please just give it a go in the privacy of your own home. Start speaking those words out loud and chewing them in your mouth and getting a sense of the muscularity of them, because it's a very muscular language. And you'll find that if you do that, it's going to improve everything else that you do as an actor as well. Even if you never actually perform Shakespeare, even just speaking it out loud and playing with those words, such a good thing to do. So let's start way back when. What was it? How did you come to acting as a career?
I was initially a professional musician, so I was touring from very early, and there were theatre components. So I toured with the dance company. I was a musician for the dance company, but there were theatre components. Then started doing random shows, random plays, filming random things. I realized, because I was sort of as a secondary, I was always told growing up that you had to compartmentalize and pick one, pick a lane, which is the worst advice you can give a creative, because we are all lanes all at once. We're everything all at once. And I sort of fell into certain theatre shows, fell into things and realized, this is not as masterful as my music, as my singing. This is not in the same category. I can feel the potential in myself to have the same level of mastery, but we weren't there and did not have the tools. One week I used to think one week I'm magnificent and next week I'm garbage. Probably the truth is one week I was probably mildly palatable and the next week, absolute dumpster fire. So that was probably more what was going on. But for me, it was going, okay, I want if I'm going to do this, let's get some mastery in there. So, after touring so young, you can kind of get away with things a little bit more. Sometimes when you're younger, there's more instinct. There's less stuff in the way at times, not always, but it was for me. I realized I've got to master this. I've got to study this. And the more I got into it, I realized that it was the rehearsing and the research and the world building and all that. That's actually my favorite bit. The performing's great, but what I do beforehand, what I do on my own, what I do in ensemble with other people is far more valuable to me. So if someone just had an eternal rehearsal, I'd probably sign up for it. And then we're going to have to perform eventually. And it is part of me. I've always performed. But knowing that no matter what role I got, I was going to be interested in that work was, it was liberating for me, because I was pretty convinced I could never have a job because I didn't like any of them. And I finally found one that I did. So that was encouraging, that I might have an income someday. That was great. Yeah, that was the main journey, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, looking at the I will come back to the musician, because I think that's something that's going to be a lot of interest. But moving into acting, what was then your first encounter with Shakespeare?
My first encounter with Shakespeare was quite dreadful. It was monologue class type situation. It was, and it was learning it in a way that, and I always kind of rebelled against this, and I'm glad that I instinctively did. I'm quite lucky that I did. It was always in a way that was quite rigid, and this is how it's done, and there's a rhythm, and there's a blah, blah, blah. I can throw out all the jargon, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to, ruin the air with it. But I think the reason I had a very distinctive impulse that wasn't it for me is because I came from an opera background. I came from a classical background, and we're singing in all these different languages in the most poetic ways, particularly German lieder. German lieder is something that hit me. I'm Italian and I like the German stuff better. Don't tell my nonna. But it's, German lieder is very poetic. It's like, here's a daisy or here's a lotus. That's one specifically. Look at the lotus. Look at how the moon hits the lotus. It's a lotus, guys. Look at it. It's a lotus. That's basically the translation of one of the lieder. But it's really, really quite I mean, everyone's dead in the Italian ones. At least we're talking about flowers instead. But I'd always known how to tackle that and how to find the human in that. And I was very lucky to have magnificent opera teachers who they could make you cry and they're singing about a lotus because of what it represents. They absolutely got to the heart of it, whatever language we were singing. Then we got to Shakespeare and it was treated more rhythmically than these arias were. And it was missing a component for me. So I got curious about it and I bought the complete works of Shakespeare randomly and started reading. 0 out of 10 would not recommend, but there's probably a bit more context needed. But, I was keen. And then started falling in love with things. So apart from high school, which wasn't a bad experience, and apart from that, started actually stumbling into text, stumbling into performances and finding things. And then it was actually Shakespeare Republic. I found Shakespeare Republic quite early and stalked Sally incessantly quite early because I was interested. I was interested in why is this popping up on my feed and looking cool and interesting. And so I think I followed all of your stuff before I'd even met you and harassed you, and masterclass sat next to you. So, there was already a sense of, oh, I like this version of it. I like this vibe of it. I like the human of it, and then found other performances. So it's a really convoluted way of saying I wasn't introduced in the best way, which I think most people aren't, which is the pitfall of education. It can go either way. But yeah, that instinct and that mastery that I had from opera and classical made me think there's got to be more. And that was interesting to me. Really interesting.
Yeah, that's hilarious. I actually don't think I knew that you'd done the whole stalking thing of Shakespeare Republic.
No, you did, because we sat at masterclass one day and you went, oh, you like all my stuff, thank you. And I went, cool. Stalking McStalkerson is just going to say it in the background here. Because it wasn't like it a sucking up. I was just really interested. I was interested in what you did and the graphics. And then I don't think we knew each other for quite a while. So I didn't think about it for a really long time. After that first encounter, I went, oh, you're the one I've been accidentally stalking. And we did have a conversation about it, but it was years ago. So
yeah, right.
It's really interesting.
I'm just Sass, I actually can't remember when we first met. That's so interesting. It's just like you've always been there. So for me, so I'm just like.
Do you know you're not the first person that said that to me? I just feel like, am I just in, ta-da, I am.
I've always just seen you as a colleague and I've just never thought about the fact that, of course there was a time when we didn't actually know each other. But I'm just.
It feels timeless.
I love that. That's awesome. And it's interesting that you mentioned the opera element. I mean, I also studied opera, although far too young, at high school of all places, which, as you know, as a singing teacher and voice teacher, is probably not the best, aged 16 to start opera, but I did it from 16 to 17. And yeah, there is this, I mean, we won't get deeply into opera because this is obviously not a podcast about opera, but having studied and learning to sing and to find the human in other languages that are very poetic and having to do that translation, I've never thought about it before, interestingly, and it's just triggered that thought that that may have actually been a little helpful when it came to Shakespeare, when Shakespeare finally turned up fully in my life, the fact that I'd had to also spend time to understand what are the Germans talking about and what are the Italians talking about and what are the French talking about, because I was just singing words and otherwise if I didn't work it out, I would just be singing words and there'd be no soul in it. So that's really quite an interesting thing that's just hit me, is maybe that was maybe those 2 years actually were quite useful for things that came into my future that I was unaware were ever going to happen. But for the Shakespeare language aspect, maybe that actually is part of what clicked into place once I got to understand Shakespeare a bit better.
Yeah, and I found that I worked it the same way as far as understanding things word for word, but then understanding them contextually and then understanding them thought to thought in a flow. So I always sort of done that with opera. We go, okay, here are the words, here's the direct translation. Here's how it would contextually work if I was going to say it, because obviously the grammar is often all kind of screwy. But then also here's the inner world that is connected to that thought. And it just found myself naturally doing that with Shakespeare as well, of breaking it down in that way, in a really human way. And not, I think the main thing for me, and I definitely got this from opera, was not rewriting and paraphrasing. And for want of a better phrase, I'm going to say dumbing down. It's not quite what I'm trying to say, but trying to lessen would probably be a way of putting it, the language to understand it. Because I found that if I was translating it word for word in a way, it kept its complexity and its sophistication, because we're all capable of grasping these things. We have it in our own language all the time, but it just made that translation palatable without making it something less than what the writing is. So that was a great skill to transfer over. So I'd have the understanding without, making it a more minor concept. It opened the world rather than closing it. So that was really useful, incredibly useful for me.
Yeah, that is interesting. And as I've not made that connection in my own practice before, and I've just suddenly gone, oh, that's right, because I did do the 2 years worth and all of the exams and everything else that came with it.
I hear you.
Oh my
I did 10 years of those exams. Someone send help, send a care package.
Yeah, right. I was done after 2 years. As soon as I was ready to leave high school, that was it. We were done. I wasn't doing that again. And I went into singing jazz and musical theatre at that point. I was gone. But yeah, it's interesting. I hadn't thought about it before, but that is definitely something that may have factored in for me too. I love these conversations. I make all these connections that haven't made before. This is brilliant.
Love it.
So I was going to say, speaking again of music, and I am going to talk specifically about something that you created for one of the projects, which was composing the main song for Dark Arcadia, which was a modern, for our listeners out there that haven't yet watched the show, and why haven't you? Go do so now. It's a modern interpretation of the Willow Song. So it's the original lyrics, but they're set to contemporary music that Sass composed. So what can you tell me about that process of taking text from, the 16th century, essentially, and putting it into a more contemporary music setting?
I think the advantage I had initially, just immediately, is the Willow Song is so visceral. You've got the poor voice that's sighing. Instantly my voice just kind of went there. It's like, oh, that's a sob, that's a sigh. And even that the repeat of the Willow, it's such a, please help me, please. Willow, hi, Willow, buddy, pow, mate, help. So there's a lot of really visceral language in that piece anyway. So it was so easy to flow thought to thought with it. In fact, I remember sending you guys a recording going, is this all right? That was take one. That was me just through composing it and going, oh, I think I did something there. Cool. Have a listen and make sure I'm not delusional, because it feels like there wasn't enough effort or push, but it's because the words and everything flows so beautifully from it. And I was able to do the same thing with the piano. I just sort of found a key and went, oh, that's where that's meant to go. It knit together so seamlessly and so well. So that was probably I'm going to say easiest, but it wasn't for lack of contemplation and it was running through me for a while, but it was certainly the easiest thing to piece together because everything was so intricately and beautifully made. I mean, that piece of text is easy. So as far as a modern context, it was really, I have a big thing about if I'm playing an instrument and then also vocalizing in any way, that they are two separate voices coming together in ensemble. So that stops you from being derailed. That stops you from, if I lose my, left hand on the piano, I've lost my lyrics or, whatever. So making sure that each part is its very own ensemble member. So I will rehearse things very specifically, just the piano ad nauseum, just vocals ad nauseum, and then bring it together after. So they are very independent voices. So all I had to do was sit at the piano and just play for a bit and then just go through the words and work the words, not singing, just work the words for a while so that I was really connected to them. So that when I sat down on the piano, I hit record on my phone and played. And it helps that I finally got my hands back on my Bernstein piano, which is living at my parents' because I can't afford to move into my apartment because it's going to cost $1,000, but that is another tragic story. But I've got to put my hands on this piano and it all just came together. The two parts of the ensemble came together and that's what I sent you. And, as you know, around that time, I'd lost two family members around the time of that production as well. So there was something about everything that was going on for me that there was just nothing in the way. There was nothing left in the tank to kind of get in the way. And the words were able to work themselves out, which is really beautiful. It was really, really fun to do. And it's such a gorgeous piece. Those words are just stunning. I'm a really big fan.
Absolutely. And yes, that first take that you sent across. I mean, I remember I was here with Billy Smedley, who's one of the other producers involved in the Incognita world, and I played it to him, and we both just looked at each other, and he went, "That's it, we're done, it's done," and I went, "Yeah, we're done. That's it."
Yeah,
it was brilliant. I mean, we both sat there, and it's that lovely moment when you just know, yeah, we're there. We don't need to do any more to this. We don't need to give any feedback. I mean, that was what was extraordinary, and it's such a lovely moment when that happens. And I think, yeah, I mean, it's testament to your talent as well, Sass. And I know that you're going to dismiss that, but I can say it. It's testament to your talent and your ability to, because, yeah, I mean, things were a bit tough at that point, and I know we were going through stuff on our side as well. I mean, everybody was having some kind of upheaval in their world at that time, but it was your testament to be able to just let that come through in the music and just let everything, whatever was going on, was actually just going to be expressed. That song happened to be a perfect vehicle for that too. So it was brilliant. Actually, for our listeners, I am now going to play you a little bit of the Willow Song because you need to hear it. I won't play the whole thing. You have to go watch the whole series to see that, but I'm going to play you a little bit now so that you can actually hear what we're talking about, because it really is a beautiful piece of music. And so this is Sass Pinci performing the Willow Song with Law Burns, who was on cello and also adding vocals.
Come all you forsaken, and mourn you with me, who speaks of a false love, mine's falser than he. Come all you forsaken, and mourn you with me, who speaks of a false love, mine's falser than he. Let love no more boast her in palace nor bow. It buds, but it blasteth ere it be a flower. Through fear and more false, I die with thy wound. Thou hast lost the truest lover, both upon the ground. Green willow, 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 willow. Willow, willow, willow shall be my garland.
And we're back. It is beautiful. I love that song, and I love what you did with that. And I think you and Law playing together as well and performing together was just extraordinary. Yeah,
it's stunning. And that human is so beautifully easy to work with and so generous. So it couldn't have had a better ensemble from my point of view. I was really happy with that.
yeah, no, it was
amazing.
Just excellent. Those that are into Shakespeare know that he wrote lyrics, but those that aren't sort of just think of either the sonnets or the plays. But yeah, I mean, he also wrote quite a few songs. Now, we unfortunately don't tend to have the music for those songs anymore. So most of the time you're going to hear people doing their own composition and putting those lyrics to it, which is why you get all sorts of really interesting interpretations. And again, for those that may not be aware of Incognita's back catalogue, we also have a song in Speaking Daggers, which is Oh Mistress Mine, which is another artist, Jaron Natoli, who actually put that to music as well for us. So we like the music thing in the Shakespeare stuff that we do.
It's fun, yeah.
I want to add to that as well, though, is that Sass also won Best Music at the Apulia Web Fest for that song and for that work. And it was well-deserved because it is absolutely brilliant. And I loved that it was the Italians that acknowledged
I know. My parents finally think that I have a real job because they won in Italy. Yeah, so that was good for me. Yeah, it was much appreciated. Thank you, Apulia. I love as far as the question of that era, I very luckily, part of my classical training was doing things like John Dowland and that kind of music. So understanding how clean the lyrics were and what kind of setting it would have had behind it made it much easier to gel with that as well. So that was fun.
Yeah. And again, guys, I mean, this is anyone listening, this is the other thing about Shakespeare. Understanding the history of the work is really helpful, because it's going to put it in context for you for when he was writing it, when it was being performed originally. And elements of that are always going to come through. I mean, that's, Sass, you know this from us working together. And again, with the teaching thing, understand the context when it was originally done, people,
Yes.
because it really helps with then if you're ever going to modernize something, as in bring it into the current period of time, not the text, you're going to keep the text the same, but if you're going to bring that text into the modern era, it really helps to be authentic with that adaptation rather than imposing something upon it, if you understand the background, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
I have to be careful.
In your learned expert, brilliant opinion, I can say it. Completely agree. Look, even when it's not Shakespeare, I've had people change circumstances of monologues or of scenes and gone, oh, it just connects with me more. And the writer in me just dies a very slow, painful, vengeful death, because having written things, just all I see is the image of me just going over it and refining and all of the work that goes into that, all of the threads, all of the intricacies that you put into something as a writer. Obviously, Shakespeare was a master at that. And when you start changing things, you lose the threads. When you don't understand it, you are losing so much of the work that's done for you. And it's a loss. It is a real loss to the writer and to everyone else listening to it, because they have to put up with it. So I'm going to say absolutely understand the context, please. It's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, and for those that may not be aware, I have said that in the intro for Sass, but Sass is also part of the Incognita producing and production team, one of the core members. And you'll find that most of us have got, several hyphenated roles within the industry, including writing.
Absolutely.
And it is something that I think, I mean, I've said this to my students, and I know, Sass, you probably have too, when we've been working with people. If you go and write something, even if it's just a scene, to just understand what goes into creating that, because it doesn't have to be anything you're going to perform or anything that anyone else has to see. But if you understand the amount of effort and time you're going to put into getting the lines exactly correct, getting, whatever it is you're trying to say as the writer with that work out there, you'll suddenly understand why. Yes, words are important, people. Get them right. Don't paraphrase. It's
Absolutely.
Unless you're doing improv, that's totally different. Improvisation, go for it. But if you're doing
look, I'm going to say, I was going to say, but even if, I've had different things where they said, oh, we're happy for you to improvise. If I know the text inside out, back to front, the improvisation is coming from a learned place and coming from an impulse kind of place, rather than me having to put clever brain on and think of things because they're not living anywhere. So even in that context, know your words word for word and then play within that framework, and it's going to be so much more successful and so much more an impulse, and you can relax. It doesn't have to be this high pressure, what clever thing can I come up with next? Sort of, it will just pour out of you. So even then, I don't know, I'm going to still advocate for knowing stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the only time is when you're up playing theatre sports or doing
absolutely
thing. That's the only time. Improvising around the text is so helpful to know the core of what you're actually talking about, as you say, for connection apart from anything else. And again, guys, just write something. Write a scene. It doesn't have to be long. Just have a go. See what it's like. I mean, I would never not have started writing if we hadn't been encouraged to do that at drama school. And I'd always wanted to, but I finally essentially got permission. So anyone listening who's wondering, this is your permission. Off you go. Go and do it. So go do it. In the spirit of advice, what would be this could be a tough one, but what would be the best piece of advice you received about acting?
Obviously there's a lot, which is why you preface it with, it could be tough. I think to follow the thread that I had before, bring all of you. So, I was a professional singer, a professional musician, and then I'd get on stage and sound a bit like a mouse, and I had someone challenge me and say, you're a professional vocalist, why can't I hear you? Bring all of the skills, please. So I think what was a game changer for me was the thing of leave nothing on the table. So whether I'm painting, whether I'm playing, whether I'm singing, whether I'm acting, whether I'm dancing, all of those skill sets need to be in play and need to be realized and not left behind. And obviously there is a different framework for each of those, but the master that I am in one area needs to be brought along for the ride for the next area. And I think there is so much, I'm acting now, I'm living now, I'm this now, rather than it being a flow of an artist inhabiting these spaces. So that was a huge game changer for me. The skills that I've picked up in painting, the skills I picked up in dancing, the skills that I've picked up as a musician, all of them make me a better actor. And the better I get at acting, the more specific I'm getting with my painting or whatever it may be. So bringing everything together as one holistic artist and look, the word holistic has been misused a little bit in recent years, but what I'm meaning is every part of you in a really healthy way being brought as an artist and an actor is really important. And it absolutely shifted my paradigm, because I had all these things that I had studied very hard that I wasn't bringing to the table when I was acting, which was such a waste, because it wasn't the acting version, which I know where I picked that up on. Lots of therapy has sorted through that, but breaking it was not the easiest. So that's probably the best challenge. It was a challenge that was issued to me. Get off your butt and do it properly rather than what you're doing. And it was a good challenge to have. It was a game changer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And look, again, I think you're back to what you were saying originally when we first started talking, which was, as a creative, you were told to choose. Be a musician,
absolutely,
be an actor, or be an artist, or be and as you say, as creatives, and look, to be honest, everybody is creative. Everyone is. Even if you don't pursue a creative career, you're creative. If you sing in the shower, my friends, you are creative. If you write in a journal, you're creative. But it is also quite often multi-pronged. It's not just one particular creative pursuit. So many actors are also painters, or singers, or dancers, or whatever, carpenters, people who do woodwork. I mean, you see it.
Which is art, pure art.
Pure art, even cooking. People, run off and start creating new sauces, and that's creative as well. So yes, you shouldn't have to choose. Sure, you want to specialize, go for it, but everything else is going to feed into that as well. Well, going on to performance stuff, what would you say has been your best experience performing Shakespeare, and what did that teach you?
There's a lot of them. I think Dark Arcadia is just my favorite. I think that's just, I mean, you wrote me some damn good scenes in Dark Arcadia, and I really appreciate it. I really, really do, because it's so varied as well. It was a sort of part that I often don't get cast in as well. So I was enjoying that on every level. I think the main thing was there always is so much human, but in Dark Arcadia there was so much human. There was so much that I got to play with, and there was so many moments in there where I felt like the language is completely and totally mine, and that was such a beautiful experience. And listening back, there's no part of me that goes, oh, that was a bit. I'm in love with it. I'm in love with the language. I'm in love with the scenes. It was, that was probably my favorite experience. Absolutely. Yeah. I just really like it. I just really love it.
I'm so pleased.
Beautiful.
Well, you stepped straight into Elizabeth, and you clearly had done your homework, as I knew you would. I mean, hello, that's why you get cast. And everyone else, just so you know, Sass is excellent. You should be casting her. Not if I'm casting her, though. Just saying, not if I'm casting her. But when she's available, you should totally be casting her. But that's it shows in your work just how much you were enjoying it as well. But also, I mean, I think, I don't know if you find this, but I definitely, from the collaborative nature of how this gets put together, the work that we do, and it's what you hope every job's going to be like, not always. But I think from my perspective as a director, I want to be able to respect my cast. People are cast for a reason. It's because I know they can do it. And, and so I love working in that collaborative way with performers. And it was a joy to work with you, Sass, as I've already said that to you. And I'm saying it publicly now. It's true. And I think you should be proud of your work with Elizabeth, because she was Absolutely three-dimensional living, breathing human being, and so well done, darling. I mean, I love that work. So in that case, let's flip it on the other side. What do you think was your most difficult, we'll use the word difficult or challenging Shakespeare experience, and what did that teach you?
Challenging in a good way
Hmm.
would actually be Mark Anthony, and again is a favorite, which was with Shakespeare Republic. And I think it was the first time it really came alive for me on an absolute visceral level, dealing with grief, dealing with shame. These are hot things to be playing with. They're not something to be messed with. So that language, I think, came up, and then being able to do it in Italian, my goodness, challenging, and it was difficult. It was difficult to make the words stick for me at times, particularly because it was during COVID. So that was a delightful, fun time for everybody, and nothing was going on at all. Nothing was stressful at all. But it was challenging. It was incredibly challenging, incredibly difficult. It was difficult in a time of profound grief to contact that grief and be okay with it. And then the language ended up being such a really lovely vehicle. So there was a lot of great processing that was able to happen from that, I think. But it was tough. It was really, really tough to work that during that time. So I appreciate it in every way, because getting to work during that time is huge, but also getting to figure out so many blocks and so many things at the time and realizing, oh, no, we've got it. We haven't forgotten everything we've ever learned about acting and existing and humaning. So it was tough, but it was very much appreciated and perfect timing. Absolutely.
Yeah. Again, that was such a time. I mean, that really was crazy. And I mean, I joke that I chose to do the third season of the series at that time because I just wanted to completely distract myself from the reality around me. But working with all you guys actually all around the world, I mean, meant that I at the end of that, I felt, because I was in a very privileged position of literally looking in to people's homes during that period, during rehearsals and then filming, because everything was being done out of people's houses. I felt very privileged to have got a sort of quite a wide look at people's experiences during lockdowns in various places around the world, 6 different cities.
Yeah.
But yeah, doing Julius Caesar that was heavy going. I mean, we chose the piece and we knew it was going to be,
I reiterate, I mean, the amount of times I had to say we did this to ourselves. I mean, it's on loop. And look, I did it with cats screaming in the background. I had, a 4-year-old at the time that would just slowly open the door and put her head around like, are you finished yet? No, I'm not finished yet. I'm just going to grieve for another hour or so, with a box of ashes. And there was those challenges as well. And that was really interesting. It was really interesting to go, oh, we're in the home environment and needing to connect to this and to concentrate and be your own tech and all these other things. Yeah, with a family that was not quiet. My household is not quiet. My family is not quiet. So there were those challenges as well as finding headspace to do this. But again, it was great timing. It was needed, absolutely needed, and really wonderful.
Yeah, I'm so glad that we got to do that. I'm really glad that you could actually also jump in and be part of that ensemble, because it was such beautiful work. And it is that thing. I would worry about everybody. I'll be honest. I was worrying about everybody being left once I said, great, bye, after filming on the Zoom call and hit that end meeting. And I'd think, I hope they're okay, because you're in your own home. There was no way to walk away necessarily from the performance space, because it's either in the lounge room or the bedroom or the kitchen or wherever where you'd have to keep using it. So, and as we know, with acting, particularly with heavy going deep stuff, that you need to have a good system for putting things to bed so that you don't have it hanging around. So
state change.
Right, the state change, it's really important. So I did worry about many people. And, as you know, I did the odd check-in. Hello, everything okay? Like a couple of days later, just making sure everyone's still breathing good. Because we were going through so much already at the time. I mean, that was the other thing. As you say, it was stressful.
Yeah.
Although there is a little part of me that wished I could have learned how to make sourdough. I have said that before. I didn't have time to do that.
once I was diagnosed celiac, I kind of let go of bread as a concept. But as everybody was making sourdough, all I could think was, oh, thank God I'm not making sourdough. So I thought it would be a really bad sign for my mental health if I started baking bread. I baked other things, but just watching those videos, no sourdough for me. No sourdough.
No, true. I mean, also fellow celiac, as we know, there's many reasons why Sass and I bond, people. But
yes.
There are, but it was something about I could make gluten-free sourdough. But anyway, yes, these were these random fantasy thoughts I had when I knew I had another filming session coming up. It's like, oh my God, it's 3:00 in the morning and I have to direct somebody in the other side of the world doing Shakespeare. So, but again, I brought that on myself, not complaining. And that series, yeah, I think it was a catharsis for a lot of people actually, and I'm really glad that we could
absolutely.
And create art at a time when it didn't look that possible to be able to do that, and also when the world did need to be able to see themselves reflected in a way that made people feel less alone. I think that was the big joy it sounds weird to say joy, but for me it was like, yeah, that's why we made it, was getting the feedback from people once the episode started airing saying, oh my gosh, I so relate to this was me during wherever, and you just go, okay, well, our job's done if people are able to relate on that level, because we're speaking Shakespeare's language. We might be dressed like now in today's clothing and in settings that are obviously modern, but yeah, that was when I went, okay, job done, if that has resonated for people, and thankfully it did. So I'm really pleased about that. All right, well, in that case, let's ask this question. Why do you think Shakespeare endures and continues to be performed so widely?
It's very much like something like Mozart. I think there are times in our culture where we have elevated it above the people, above the working class people, but that's who it was written for. And I think that's why it endures and why it continues, because the human condition is timeless. It has different cultural implications, different boundaries, different things, but it's endless and it's timeless. So I think it's still really hitting those things. But for me, it's also, and we're getting back to this, which is so lovely, and big part of the sort of work that you do as well, is that we're realizing, oh, it's funny. Oh, it's interesting. Oh, it's human. Chekhov went through this a little bit as well. If I see one more Chekhov that's done like a funeral dirge, when it's actually just uproariously funny when it's done properly. Yep. So it's really, I think that's why it endures, because we keep discovering, oh no, this is for us. This was written for people. This is written for human beings. This wasn't a posturing. This wasn't a look at me, I made something interesting, everybody bow down. It was, here's shit that's going on right now. Let's talk about it. And I think that is timeless. That is always timeless.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I think that, you make this comment too about Chekhov, is not that it has a similar problem, but there's that idea which kind of began in the Victorian era, really, of putting Shakespeare on this pedestal. And, England was in search of finding their great poet, and they chose Shakespeare with good reason. I mean, they made a good choice, but they put him up on this pedestal, therefore. And so there's always been this very much an elite kind of attitude to his work. And sure, he wrote for royalty and aristocrats as much as he wrote for the common person, but that's the point. He wrote for everyone. And as you've heard me say this before, but I'll say it again here. I mean, I think for me, the trick with approaching Shakespeare is to take him off the pedestal and walk beside him, not behind him.
Yeah.
And I think more and more people are definitely in England, which of course is the home of Shakespeare, have been embracing that. But I think more and more choosing to do it in their own accents, choosing to do it even in different languages, making it more theirs than the elite or the academia. As much as I'm all for academia, I think that conversation is always really interesting. But when it comes to performing, you need to take your academic hat off and put the human one on. And I think it's great to see people doing that more and more. And it's certainly been the approach, as you know, to what we do. I mean, as far as performing Shakespeare, do you have any thoughts, advice, tips, things you've seen done that you wish weren't, and fixes for that? Any commentary on that?
Well,
Sass the teacher is
yes,
the session. Yes.
absolutely. I think the biggest thing I grieve when I see, and I'm going to say Shakespeare performed poorly, but what I actually mean, it's not a value judgment. What I think is missed is the heart and the human and the internal life. I think where it goes really wrong is when the internal life is not worked on, what this human being is thinking and feeling that leads them to the next words. And this is where we end up with a strange kind of poem recitation rather than, hey, this is happening. I want something from you. Let's make this happen. Which is so much more interesting to me. It's interesting to see a person figuring things out with these words than to kind of get into the performy side of it. So I think that's always what grieves me when and I've said to people working on Shakespeare with them, well, what are you thinking here? What got you from this thought to this thought? And they go, I don't know. It's because it's on the page. That's never an answer. If your answer for continuing to speak is because it is on the page, that is the wrong answer. So that continual question of why do I keep speaking? Why do I keep speaking? Why do I keep speaking? It's not because it's Shakespeare. It's because you have more to say. And when that is missed, or turned into a kind of a pantomime or a performance, it does, the intricacy is missing for me. And I think I really grieve that. I grieve the fact that we've just lost a really interesting and profound moment by not digging to that next level. It's internal to external. It's not a bunch of words. So that's probably my main thing that kind of sends that kind of shiver, is when it's missed. And when you watch somebody who you can see their inner life is so connected, they know what they're saying, and what comes next comes out of a need. It's just profound to watch. And it's a mastery. I think that's the main thing. I missed mastery in a lot of things. Close enough is good enough can happen quite often. And we're going to get that more with AI and get that more with things that are coming through. I think if we can maintain a level of mastery in anything, it's spiritual. It's not just words. It is a spiritual connection kind of the universe and where we are and our place. So that, I think that really sums it up for me. It all comes down to mastery, and mastery is that internal to external and that connection. When that's missing, I have a hard time. I struggle.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think that is something when someone comes away from a Shakespeare performance particularly, but it's really any performance, because obviously this is applicable to any text that you're doing. Yeah. But for Shakespeare, people come away and sort of go, oh, I don't know, I kind of didn't feel like I was into it as an audience member. I wasn't really connecting I didn't really care enough. That's a sign that unfortunately that internal work probably hasn't been done as well as it could have been. Yeah, sure, you can blame a director, you can blame staging, whatever you like, but generally it's possible. It's most likely because those actors either haven't had time or weren't given the guidance to actually work out that, yeah, Shakespeare's just like any other text, and these people are like any other human beings you're going to play, and you need to be really on that homework so that you can be doing living and breathing as a human being who happens to speak in Elizabethan language. And it helps with the understanding of the text too, if you've done that internal work, obviously, as you know, because then all of a sudden you do need those words, and those words will just become your words. It's an interesting thing to me to watch the external to internal, which is still sometimes getting taught. I won't go into that because I'm not a fan, but it can happen in performance quite a lot too, where it's done because, the blocking's done. You need to go A, B, and then and the actor's kind of struggling to make all that work. Yeah, external to internal is never going to be as compelling. And yeah, these people are people. When he was writing, I'm quite sure these were people he observed or knew or heard about. They were real. I mean, for me, that's really helpful to remember. That's why, as you know, Sass, when I'm teaching Shakespeare, I make people go away and learn about the history. I've said that before, because these people lived,
Yeah.
They may be fictitious characters, but they're based on real people, because that's where writers normally draw their inspiration from.
Inspiration, yeah. And it's really interesting to me, because it occurs to me that I think it was year 11 or 12, I had to do a morality play. So I ended up really delving into the Elizabethan era and just fell in love with her as a queen. I mean, I'm not dead yet has to be my final words. I just have to scream them at somebody. It's really incredible, because what struck me, like a lot of great leaders, and there are a ton of them, she was so incredibly flawed, and it's beautiful. It's far more interesting. But I think to be that kind of human, there has to be a lot raging at once. There has to be an intricacy. So that was probably a bit of that introduction to that time. I think that's probably shadowed and colored what I've done since. Is I'm looking at these humans, go, they are incredibly flawed. We have a strange thing where we often put people from the past on a weird pedestal as well. And this idea of like, well, people never used to swear and smoke and all the rest of it. Whereas, I mean, there's family members that tell me that, in the 50s and 60s, they used to smoke behind the church and the priest would join them. People have been people for all eternity. It's just we had different social faces. So it's really quite interesting to get to know the people of the time as much as we can. And we are learning more as history becomes less washed and becomes, kind of more visceral, uncovering things, thinking, why haven't I heard of this? Why haven't I heard of this person? We're starting to get the ability to get our hands on that information and realizing we are all flawed. We have always been flawed. And isn't that an interesting thing to explore? So that's why that historical context is so interesting to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, gosh, don't get me started on Elizabethan history. I find it fascinating. And you know what? And I didn't. And that's the thing. But again, same thing you were saying, me being forced to do my thesis on Elizabethan theatre at drama school, that opened my eyes completely to the reality of these people were real and they were like us. They just lived 400 years earlier in those conditions in that society. But yeah, absolutely. At the essential core of it, they are just as flawed as any modern person is. They just happen to speak slightly more flowery language than we do now.
I don't know. My language is fairly flowery. So,
Right. But that thing about, the non-swearing thing, I'm sorry, Shakespeare swears all the way through. It's just not the swear words that we necessarily use now. But, there's definitely some creative insult throwing, at least, that goes on in his work.
Much of that, yeah.
And quite a few slurs actually as well. They're definitely not clean living and clean language characters that he wrote. And again, that would have been London. I mean, London was rough and ready as all get out.
Yeah. And
they came from everywhere to London too. It was a port town, so it was full of people from all over the world, but also from all over the country. I mean, yeah, I always find that hilarious when people are like, oh, they were so prim and proper with their ruffs around their necks and their bejeweled, no, trust me, they weren't. Watch the Tudors. I mean, you might, that again, that's dramatized for a certain audience, but shows like that kind of give you an idea. I would not actually want to live then, just to be honest, just to say.
Oh, no, 0 out of 10 would not recommend. No.
Right.
But still fascinating to look into from a distance.
Fascinating to look into. Yeah, we won't get into that, but we might on a future podcast, we might start talking about Elizabethan history together because, oh my gosh, there's so much. If you could ask, speaking of Shakespeare being a real person, if you could ask Shakespeare one question, what would it be?
Oh, that's interesting. I don't think I'm not much of a questioner. I don't think I would ask questions. I'd make a terrible interview host because nah, it's just not how I relate to the world. But I would certainly be interested in getting a vibe and getting a read on the human. So I think I'd do. See, I'm making myself sound like a stalker, like I stalked Shakespeare Republic, and then I would be more interested in sitting the next table over and hearing him talk to somebody else. I would love to get a read on the human being. That's really fascinating to me, which is why, if there's, and I do this with writers in general, if there's a conference, I'm never the one to ask a question, but I am watching like a hawk as they answer questions and as they speak and their mannerisms. So I'm really interested in the human and how they relate to the world. Also because I know that my social face and my social self does not feel as stable and as kind of open as my creative self. That is really the outlet for me. So I'm always fascinated what a person is like compared to their work. That really interests me. So not a question, because I'm not a questioner. I'd love to let people talk, but I'm very bad at follow-up questions because I'm already like, oh, squirrel. But I'm very much interested in the read on the person and who the person is.
Yeah. No, it would be very interesting. I'd be interested to know actually whether or not my idea of what an Elizabethan pub in the theatre district, whether that actually is how things would play out there. because I'm pretty
Oh,
sure.
I was definitely thinking of a pub.
Right. Oh, absolutely a pub. But I'm pretty sure that that's where the unofficial writers' rooms were taking place as well. Of, someone pitching this idea or saying, I'm working on this, and someone else sort of chiming in with their idea on it. Because there was definitely a collaboration, be it official or otherwise, between the playwrights. And that would be fascinating to sort of watch those debates sort of play out as to, yes, but I can't include that for this reason, or, oh yes, that's a really good idea. I'm just going to steal that. No, you can't have credit. I think I'd be interested to see how that all played out too.
Yeah.
Finally, let's get to the thing about acting, because I think I'm always interested to hear people's responses to this question. So what's your philosophy on acting and the act of creating in general? And how do you see, it's a two-part question, how do you see the role of artists and creatives in context to society?
I think as far as the kind of personal journey, I really ascribe to the eyes in your own lane, except for inspiration. So be inspired by each other and built up by each other. But it is your thing and is your journey. So really eyes in your own lane and what your idea of success is really important to have that clear from pretty early on, and to enjoy it along the way. So as far as a philosophy of acting, it's really got to fit into your life in a lot of way, and then your life has got to fit into it. It's got to be a really beautiful symbiosis. As far as society, it's interesting because I don't love when people try to make a point, particularly if it's in the zeitgeist where they go, hey, look, I made a piece of art and it's got to do with that thing we're talking about. But man, do I love when it's inspired, when it is just a flashlight or a mirror to exactly what is going on. And I think what recent events have definitely shown is that the place in society is really the last line of defense. It's the last place where you get to scream from the rooftops in a lot of ways and say, hey, this is a thing that's going on, whether it be through comedy, whether, satire is a big one because it tends to make it palatable, whether you be walking away from a play and go, oh, I haven't thought of that. That's going to stick with me. I think it speaks to a deeper level than what most things can. So it's at the moment in the current climate, but in general, I think art is often a record keeper of who we are in spite of whatever might be going on, particularly culturally as things are lost and things are burning to the ground a little bit at the moment. It's a record keeper of who we are and what that harmony looks like. Whatever side you're meant to be on, we can agree on these beautiful things that people have created, but also shining a light and a mirror and a chance to really say what's going on. So it's definitely an important place. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that's obviously, as we've discussed in the past, it's also why the arts tend to get defunded or attacked, because if a government or a power don't, want to be held accountable, often the first thing they'll do is look for what the artists are doing, because artists will just be vocal because we can't help ourselves. But also because it can reach a lot of the population if it's done cleverly and it's done authentically as well, and make people think. This is the one of the big powers of the arts. And to put it back in context with Shakespeare, I mean, I think he was involved in writing pieces that he had to be very careful, because they had, of course, the Master of the Revels, they had a censor that actually would not allow, if they thought it was anything close to sedition, it was getting nowhere near a stage. So it's interesting to read through his works and know, again, the context of the time and what was going on, and seeing some of the commentary that he was making about his own society, either covered in comedy or, in some cases, satirical comedy, or drama or tragedy, or history. I mean, some of the histories were also reflecting his thoughts on the world. I mean, again, he left us no notes, so we don't know, but I presume that that's partly what he was using his work for. And also that also then does appeal to the audience, because audiences are hungry for a reflection of what they think is going on in the world. They want to be able to be reassured that they're not crazy or they're not alone in their thought processes as well.
Yeah. I think also it's able to leave an impression that is much more than words. It's much more than lecture. Art can leave an imprint. I had someone ask once, well, what are your boundaries of the sort of content that you'll make and da 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 da. And so my answer to them was, my biggest thing is, what is the impact? What is the taste that this is going to leave in the world? What is the impression this is going to leave in the world? Because you can have something that on the surface is, quote, G or PG, but does not add to society in a good way. That leaves an impression, or leaves something that is technically appropriate, but is just not adding, but subtracting, or even worse. So I think that's definitely something that I can do. I can supersede the thinking brain a little bit and really settle into the human soul a bit more, and leave an impression, a question, so that people can keep working things and looking at things. And Shakespeare certainly does that. And it sounds like, doing that in the time of being censored, but I'm just going to drop a feeling in there. I'm just going to, we're going to communicate on a deeper level in these words that can be censored. And that's really the magic of it. The words can be censored, but the communication can't, which is really brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, as you know, he wrote very layered text. I mean, it spoke on one level, but if you dig a bit deeper, it's like, oh, is he also talking about this? I think he might be, which would also get him past the censor, who'd have, because so many plays were getting produced at the time that they were not going to sit there and analyse every single thing in front of them. They would just read what was on surface level. So, yeah, there was a cleverness in getting that past people as well to get it on the stage. But I think the arts are important, as we know they are. I mean, everybody does actually know they are. As someone once likened them. I remember at drama school we had directors and others come in and work with us, and I can't for the life remember who said this, which is terrible of me, but there was a comment made that the arts are like the safety valve of society as well. They can be cathartic as well as release energy for a society that has nowhere else to go. Mm. And I think that's a really interesting way of looking at it as well. So, I mean, whatever anyone does for a job in society is important, because society falls over generally if not everyone is doing their job. But I think artists, we also have a job, and that's part of our service, I think. My personal philosophy is that, we're of service to the society that we live in that way. All right, we're going to get to the quick fire round questions. Let's do it. All right, let's do it. Favorite Shakespeare character?
I fell in love. I'm going to have to say Mark Anthony. I fell in love. I can't help it.
Absolutely. Favorite Shakespeare play?
Well, if we're going to go Mark Anthony, we're going to have to go Julius Caesar, and also I'm Italian and I can't help it. So, I'm stuck there for a little bit. I mean, there's many others, but, in the gladiator battle, it's going to win every time.
Perfect. Excellent. Favorite Shakespeare performance you've seen?
Look, I think anytime I see Judi Dench do Shakespeare, I'm reminded of why we do Shakespeare. So that's a pretty great bar.
Absolutely. Favorite Shakespeare character you've played?
I'd say, but then I'm going to say Mark Anthony again. But then again, Elizabeth is also right up there, and there's a few others there.
You can say Mark Anthony. I will let you say Mark Anthony.
Mark Anthony. Yep, all the way.
That is completely appropriate and fine. And I love that he's getting some love, because he often gets overlooked. So, because he's not one of the top 5. So I'm very happy to hear that. Describe Shakespeare in 3 words.
Let's say still needed, definitely. There's the 3 words.
Perfect. Still needed, definitely. Very good. Loving that. Excellent.
What is your favorite moment of Shakespeare Republic? Because there's been so many, even if it's a concept or just something that's left you with, because you've put a monumental amount of work. I mean, you do with everything that you do, but this is something that's been with you for a long time. So it really interests me. What has it given back to you? Because it owes you. So what is something that is absolutely given back to you for all the work that you have done and all the beautiful space that you've created for all of us, which we so appreciate?
Oh, Sass, that's so lovely of you to say. And oh my goodness, this is a really good question. Oh my goodness, it's like choosing a favorite child. My favorite, okay. I think actually, I don't know that there's a favorite moment. I mean, there are so many favorite moments, so I don't know that there's necessarily one particular favorite moment per se, but I think it's been my favorite aspect of doing the work has been working with the extraordinary, huge. I mean, there's something, I don't know how many actors in Shakespeare Republic alone now. I think it's over 40. But if we put all of the things together, all the stuff we've done, it's actually nearly over 100 actors, which is crazy. That includes all the series. That's Walking Shadows, that's Shakespeare Republic, that's Dark Arcadia, that's Speaking Daggers, it's all of that. It's been working. It's that moment when an actor who you've gone to and said, would you like to do some Shakespeare? And they go, sure. And they kind of freak out a bit and go, but I'm freaking out, which means I should be doing it, so I'll do it. And then you watch them, you've had the rehearsal and you've dealt with the anxieties that are going to come up because, I mean, for me, they come up for me still anyway. So, of course, they're going to come up with someone who hasn't tackled it before, particularly doing it in a public forum. And then watch them on set and just watch them lock in and hear themselves and just give over to the character, the moment, and just produce a piece that you just go, oh my gosh, that was so connected. It just came from them. Nobody else could do that because it's that unique actor in that specific moment that produced that work. That's actually that's brilliant. And you'll see behind the scenes footage of me on set where I will nod. I start nodding. It's a weird and trying not to talk because, of course, audio can't talk. But you'll see me start to nod, or I'll just give the one nod, and that's because I know they've just nailed it. And all it's taken from me is a bit of prodding in that direction, and they've jumped in and just gone for it. And there's something about watching an actor fly in that moment that's just extraordinary for me. And it's happened so many times, and it's. Yeah, I mean, the whole purpose of doing Shakespeare Republic was to make it accessible and make it a lot less scary. So, it's brilliant to watch the actors themselves going through that process. And even with actors that are actually really experienced with Shakespeare who've come in and gone, yep, I know this character, I know this role, it's not a problem, I know this text. And great, I mean, that's fine. And then we get in the moment and I'll give them a bit of a tweak in the room or on set and watch them do it. And they've discovered something new. That is exciting because you know that they are in the moment with it as well. And again, the connection's there. So it's just getting to watch actors just fly and be brilliant because they've done the homework and they've committed. It's exciting to watch. So that would be my favorite aspect, I think, of the work. Gosh.
Yay.
Thanks
Love
for
that.
the question. Thanks for the question. That I've never really thought about it before. So that's That's brilliant. Yeah, no, that is. It is. There's something about it all coming together and that magic that can happen that, you probably couldn't recreate if you tried, but in that moment it all happens. That's just, that's so much joy in that I really love. Oh, thank you.
I love that. That's gorgeous.
Is there anything I've not covered about Shakespeare in these questions that you'd like to throw into the mix before we move into the last little bit?
Not that you haven't covered, but I will note, as someone who does voice, and I think a really important element of Shakespeare is that it forces you to be on your voice and in your body to be heard and to be understood. So from a training perspective and a development perspective and a human perspective, it's golden. It's golden to work, and it's golden to be held accountable for word. It's really obvious, say, if you go in with Mark Anthony's speech and you start changing things, people are going to know. So there is a transparency to Shakespeare, which I think is so useful and, definitely worth exploring.
Yeah. Excellent. Nothing more to add to that. That's very well put. No, I 100% agree with that. All right. Well, we've got to this point where I say, have you got anything coming up, acting, music, whatever, that you can talk about? And if so, what is that and how can people partake in it?
So I am very luckily doing a Fringe show called Elephant Rope. I got a phone call from a very lovely friend of mine, Richard Milley, who's like, I've written a thing. Can you read the thing? And then it was prefaced with, I promise I'm okay. I went, what have you written, sir? I read it and I went, because I direct a lot of his stuff, I said, do you want me to direct or act? He went, oh, you pick. I said, I'm going to have to act it because I'm going to be jealous of whoever does this. So it's very rare that you find a script, you're like, I want to do it. And so very excited about that. So that's in Fringe Festival at Motley Bauhaus. So if you look up Fringe Elephant Rope, there'll be some very deranged photos of me, which is usually the way. And he said, I'm so sorry. I think I've cast you as the monster again. I went, it's fine. So that's going to be a ton of fun. And that's probably the main one. And then directing a show at the end of the year. So watch my show socials because there's quite a few things. And there's another Fringe show being written for the beginning of next year. So lots coming through, which is very cool. But Elephant Rope is the first one coming up. And yeah, it's an actor's workout, which I'm very much looking forward to. And I get to do multiple accents and, and torture another human for a good hour. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be a load of fun. It's my kind of thing, for sure.
Sass. For those who don't know, Sass is known for, at the moment, is known for being a bit of a horror queen. So you film and screen and stuff, she'll usually be the monster or the person that's, the creature. And so now we're getting to do it on stage. Awesome. So that's Elephant Rope for the Melbourne Fringe Festival. And we'll put details in the description for this episode so that you can find out more. And so that leads into, where can people find out more about you?
So the main thing, I do have a website, sasspinci.com. SASSPINCI, because it's a lovely Italian name. And mainly sort of the usual social places like Instagram and Facebook. I don't have a TikTok because I can't be bothered. It took about 10 years of bullying for me to get an Instagram, and now I'm done. So leave me alone. So I have those three. They're probably the best places. I've got upcoming masterclasses and things that I'll be teaching and all the rest of that, and that'll all be advertised there as well. So they're probably the best places to find me. And feel free to drop me a line as long as it's kind. I don't mind, because these are places that I use for work as well. And love connecting with people. So those are probably the main spots.
Absolutely. And yes, that is, thank you for bringing that up, Sass. So Sass will be doing a masterclass. Can you talk a little bit about the masterclass, Sass, at this point, or is this still under wraps?
No, the venue and the date are being finalized as we speak. But the main thing is, from working with voice and text, and then moving that actually into performance. So that'll be a 2-day class where first we deal with all the technicalities of voice and your body, and then the next day get to actually put that into practice with a scene partner, with a scene and with a monologue. So this is the spot to basically come and get a gym workout and work all that stuff through with other people in the room, so it doesn't feel so foreign, but also to be coach through those things and find ways to connect to those words. And that'll be advertised very soon.
Perfect. Excellent. Because you should all do it. If you're in Melbourne, even if you're not in Melbourne, fly into Melbourne and do the masterclass with Sass, please, because it is well worth doing, and you will kick yourself if you don't. People often, when they hear about voice work masterclasses, kind of get a bit freaked out about it. Trust me, it's definitely voice, but it's also, as Sass has just said, it's going to embody the entire human and also your acting technique as well. So yes, get there as fast as
Absolutely.
You can. Give this woman your money and do the master.
Thank you. Do.
Excellent. Well, this brings us to the end of our chat. So Sass Pinci, thank you so much for being part of Musing on the Bard.
Thank you so much for having me. Absolute pleasure. One of my favorite topics. So we're doing well. It's a good way to spend the evening.
We are, and it's been a joy as always. So thank you so much. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. I've been your host, Sally McLean, and this has been Musing on the Bard. You can read more about our work, all our guests, and this podcast at our official website, musingonthebard.com. If you want to see the video version of this podcast, head to our Patreon. Links are on the site. This podcast was made possible via a small events grant from the British Shakespeare Association. Produced by Incognita Enterprises, edited and presented by Sally McLean. With thanks to all of our guests and our Patreon patrons for continuing to support our work. Until next time, I wish you health, wealth, and happiness. See you anon.